Ladies, I promise you, getting in amazing shape is not that difficult, but the reason that you haven't been able to get that fit, toned, strong looking body is just because, number one, you don't have a good quality strategy, and then you're not consistent enough for long enough with that good quality strategy. So in today's video, I'm going to explain what that strategy should be so you can melt body fat, build that sexy muscle definition, and easily be able to maintain it for the rest of your life. What's going on, Fit Fam? Welcome on back to my channel. My name is Megan Janice, the founder of Nomadic Fitness, and I teach you ladies how to eat more food, not less, and work out smarter instead of harder, so you can build that beautiful, fit hourglass body you feel amazing in and will be able to maintain year-round for life with ease. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Come follow me over on Instagram for even more fitness content, and if you're coming on back, thanks so much for joining for another video. All right, fam, there are 3 things you need to do to have a quality strategy to get that fit, toned, sexy looking body that you want to have. So I'm gonna give you a quick overview of what those 3 things are, and then we're going to deep dive into each one. So the first is you need to be tracking macros, your protein, fats, and carbs, and doing it properly and consistently. So I'm gonna explain how to do that. The second is you need to be training properly. So not just randomly exercising, doing workout classes, using some light dumbbells. You need to learn how to really work out smarter instead of harder, aka train better, so that you're actually going to build that amazing muscle definition and be able to maintain it all of the time. And the third thing is you need to be tracking your body's data and be specifically dedicated to a phase of either muscle gain or fat loss, and I'm gonna explain how you do that. Okay, so getting into the first thing, macros. This is an absolute must, ladies. It is not enough just to eat healthy or even just to track calories only or track your protein. You need to track all 3 macros, protein, fats, and carbs. And that is because the amount of each of the 3 that you have plays its own unique role in how much body fat versus muscle you have. And don't forget that fit, toned body literally just means that you have built a lot of muscle and you have kept your body fat levels relatively low. So this is one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of women making off the bat is they are just trying to eat healthy, they're just trying to eat clean, but they don't have any real strategy around their nutrition. They don't have specific targets they're aiming for. And the thing is, if you're just trying to eat healthy, that is very vague, which means you're going to end up getting a really vague result. And it's most likely not very sustainable, very enjoyable, or very balanced. So the nice thing about macros is you technically can eat whatever you want so long as you hit your targets. So that's really cool because it means that you can eat pancakes, you can eat tacos, you can eat pasta, whatever you want. You just need to have a plan to make sure that the food is going to fit in with your daily totals. And then the other good thing about macros is that you do still get to have 1 to 2 cheat meals, what I prefer to call free meals, every single week. So you can still feel like you get to have some balance in your life, which is really important if you want to be able to be consistent with your fitness and always have a consistent result. Okay, so if you don't know what your macros should be, if you're not sure what is the amount of protein, fats, and carbs that would be custom for your body and your goals, I have lots of videos on this channel that go over that. You can watch it here. I'll link in the description so you can go check that out to set up your custom numbers. But once you have what your custom numbers are, this is how you actually hit your macros. You want to use the app MyFitnessPal or any app like that, and then you want to pre-plan your day of eating ahead of time. So this again is something that a lot of people are not doing. They're just kind of trying to wing it with their nutrition, and this is why they end up not being consistent, is because they're like, hopefully I'll hit my macros. You need to change that way of thinking to say, no, I will for sure hit my macros, because if you want to get a specific result, you need to know that you're giving your body what it requires to achieve that result. So for example, right now, my macros in my cuts, I'm 2 weeks into cutting, are 140 grams of protein, 250 grams of carbs, 55 grams of fat. Those are my macros. Doesn't mean that you should follow them. I'm just sharing so we can have an example here. So what I do at the start of my day is I just quickly take 2 minutes, go through MyFitnessPal and plan out everything that I'm going to eat for the day. And then I go check to make sure that I'm hitting each of my macro targets within a couple of grams. I literally try to hit my macros pretty much as dead on as possible, but you can be anywhere plus or minus 5 grams. You don't want to be over that because then that means there's just too much wiggle room. You're not actually actually hitting the targets. So aim to hit specifically plus or minus 5 grams, and then you already know exactly what to eat. You simply follow the plan. Now, a way to make this easy on a day-to-day basis, if you are busy, don't have that much time, is just try to eat similar things day to day. I'm definitely one of those people. I don't need to constantly eat new things. I really eat very similar meals day to day just because I like to be quick, I like to be efficient, and I know what tastes good for me and what hits my macros. So I literally just copy and paste my meals over to the next day in MyFitnessPal, and then maybe I make a few small adjustments for any swaps I made that day, but this is how it becomes really quick and easy to track your macros. Now, the other thing is you want to actually use a kitchen scale, not just using tablespoons and cups. You want to actually measure out your food. It only takes 1 second, and then you want to track things by weight instead of by volume. So when you do it this way, you are guaranteeing that you are eating the right amount of food for your body and your goals. Now, if you're in a cut, aka in a fat loss phase, which is what I'm doing right now, you want to be doing this, hitting your macros within 5 grams plus or minus 6 days out of the week. And that is because since we're trying to optimize for fat loss, we can't be quite as flexible with our diet. We really need to be super dialed in so we can make sure that we actually are in that calorie deficit and we are losing the body fat, because that is our goal right now, right? We don't want to be wasting our time. We want to be in this deficit and get out of it as fast as we can so we can go back to being more flexible but be lean and gaining all that sexy muscle. Now, if you're not in a fat loss phase, if you're in a muscle building phase, or you're in a reverse diet, which I'll talk about later, then you can have as much as even 2 to 3 free meals per week, which would mean you're hitting your macros spot on 5 days a week, maybe even just 4 days a week when you're in a build, because when you're in a build, you get to be the most flexible with your food. And build meaning muscle gain phase. So honestly, this is one of the biggest reasons women are not seeing results with their fitness is they're not doing this. They are not deciding what they're going to eat. They're not staying consistent with it, and they're not actually tracking the data of what they eat. So if you're frustrated that you are not seeing the fitness results that you want, but you're not doing this, honestly, this is one of the biggest areas of opportunity for you. It'd be the same thing as if you had a goal of trying to save money, but you never actually sat down, looked at your expenses, looked at your income, and took deliberate steps to actually try to save that money, right? This is the same thing you're doing with your fitness. You're just kind of like hoping you'll get the result instead of for sure knowing because you are tracking your data. So make this change. It will make a huge difference. Stay consistent with it. Have your 1 to 2 free meals a week, but outside of that, plan your macros, eat according to the plan, and you will definitely see some big changes in your physique. Okay, the second thing you need to do is you need to really train hard and train smartly. So you do not need to exercise that much to get in amazing shape. I only go to the gym 4 days a week for about 1 hour each time. And obviously I know that that's something, it's still 4 hours out of your week, but I talk with lots of women who literally work out 5, 6, 7 days a week and they still don't have very good fitness results. And that's because it is not about doing so much. It is about really doing it well. So again, that fit tone body you want to have is nothing more than a muscular body. That is why you have that sexy definition. All of the tone literally just means having muscle. So this means your workouts need to be focused on what makes muscle mass. And the best way to build muscle is to lift challenging weights. And the best way you can do that is to go to an actual gym. You'll have access to all of the equipment that you could possibly need to really hit your muscles in all the different ways and really overload them with resistance, because it's that overloading with resistance, that stimulus on your muscles, that makes them grow. So like I said, you really only need to be going in for about 45 to 60 minutes, doing just about 5 or 6 exercises in your entire workout, and most of them for 3 sets. Now, it's really important, just like with your food, that you also want to be tracking your workouts, because if you're just kind of winging it every single time, you have no way of knowing if you're actually making any progress. And remember, you want to add more muscle onto your body. That means you want to make sure that you are actually progressing in your workouts. So you want to be tracking what you did every single time, every set, how much weight you lifted, and also the amount of reps you did. And even better if there's any way to keep little notes for yourself, because even more than just reps and weight, you want to really give it your full effort and your full intensity. So if you can make notes about how the set went, and if you thought like, maybe that weight was a little bit too heavy, my form got kind of sloppy, or actually that seemed a little bit too easy, I definitely think I can push myself harder next time. That way, when you go to train again, you will know what you want to focus on. So you want to see every training session as an opportunity for you to really shine, okay? You're not there just ticking the boxes, just going through the motions. You're there to build some muscle, which means you want to be improving from your previous session. So whether that means adding more weight, doing more reps, but most of all, what really matters is just that you are pushing yourself to the max. Give it your full effort. Train as close to failure as possible, meaning that you literally go all the way until you simply cannot do a single more rep. That is the way that you want to be thinking of your workouts. You want to follow a set workout plan for about 8 weeks at a time before you would change it over, because you need to have time to improve every single week at what you did the previous week. And I promise you, if this is how you're working out, you are definitely going to see changes really quickly in your body, especially if you're combining it also with the nutrition. Okay, now the third thing you need to do is you need to pick a phase to be dedicated to. Meaning, we know that that fit, lean, toned, hourglass shapely body is a combination of having quite a lot of muscle and then not having that much body fat. Now, the thing is, building muscle and losing fat actually take totally different strategies. Building muscle requires being in a moderate calorie surplus, so eating more calories than your body's burning, meaning you are actually gaining a little bit of weight. But of course, it means that you're gaining a lot of muscle, which is going to give your body that shape, and it's going to speed up your metabolism because muscle costs your body a lot of calories, even at rest, doing absolutely nothing, so you'll be able to maintain the results. So muscle gain requires a moderate calorie surplus, and the opposite is fat loss, which requires a calorie deficit. So this means the best thing you can do is to pick one or the other to be focused on. So if you are quite skinny right now, you're already really lean, it's in your best interest to go into a muscle building phase, because adding more shape onto your body is really the thing that is going to make it look the way that you want it to. Now, let's say you definitely have some body fat that you want to lose, then it would make a lot more sense for you to go into a calorie deficit. Now, the thing is, you want to ask yourself if you are in a position to be ready for a calorie deficit. And if you are not, this is where the third option comes in, which is called a reverse diet. A reverse diet is where you intentionally increase the amount of food that you eat so that your body's maintenance level is going to be at a higher calorie intake. And then this is going to allow you to have the room to go into a calorie deficit and be able to lose body fat really easily. So generally speaking, a lot of women should be around at least 2,000 calories a day before they go into a calorie deficit. Now, this is going to depend on your age, your height, how sedentary you are, and just also how easily or not you are able to gain or lose weight. So take that with a bit of a grain of salt. You have to look at your body's data to really know for sure. And this is actually what we have as an offer inside our one-to-one coaching. We literally provide all of this for you, so you don't have to take all this overwhelming information and try to make sense of it yourself. We will literally give you a completely custom strategy and guide you through it every single step of the way, holding you accountable to actually get it done, and then constantly making adjustments to your program so that over time, you're building that muscle, losing that body fat, and being able to maintain it at a high calorie intake. So if you would love to have this all taken care of for you and not have to guess and figure it out on your own, we would love to see if you're a good fit for our program, so you can click on the link in the description and apply to speak with us. Okay, so the way that you're going to know whether or not you should be doing a muscle build phase, a fat loss phase, or a reverse diet to prepare you for one or the other is by tracking your body's data. So weighing yourself every single day, charting it in a graph, and then taking weekly progress photos. And then that you're also recording the other stuff that I talked about, that you're doing your macros 5 to 6 days a week, being really diligent about actually hitting them, not just saying you track macros, but then being way off what the actual targets are. And then also tracking your workouts. Now, the average person has more body fat than they want to have. So most people are going to need to usually do some amount of a reverse diet before they go into a cut, and that is what is going to take the body fat off for them. And then once they get lean enough, they would once again reverse out of their cut, and then assuming that they're lean enough, they would go into their build phase where they're really going to gain all of the muscle that's really going to shape and change their body. So the way that you're going to figure out which phase you should be in is, like I said, you are tracking your weight first thing in the morning every single day, also tracking your macros and tracking your workouts. Now, what you're doing in a reverse diet is you slowly start to bring up your food bit by bit. Generally speaking, this is going to be somewhere between 50 to 100 calories, and it's usually going to be every 1 to 2 weeks. And again, you're going to know when you should do this by actually tracking tracking your body's data, evaluating it, and then making the decision from there. So let's say you currently only average about 1,600 calories a day after you spent 1 week actually tracking how much you do currently eat to see, okay, what does my average intake look like? But you also have body fat that you want to lose. Well, the thing is, 1,600 calories is not very high. It would be way more in your best interest to do a bit of a reverse diet, get your calories a little bit higher so that you're going to speed up your metabolism and you're going to get your body's maintenance to a much higher intake. So by the time you want to go into a cut, by the time you want to lose that body fat, you're going to be able to cut calories from, let's say, 2,200 calories a day instead of 1,600. So you're gonna have way more run room to drop your calories to lose that body fat. So what you're gonna be doing while you're reversing is looking at what's happening with the scale. Now, of course, this is assuming that you're being perfectly adherent. If you are not being adherent with hitting your macros and tracking all of this data, then nothing else really matters, right? You need to be adherent because that's the only way you can make sense of the data. If you are completely doing something totally different every day, there's no consistency with your data, and then you have no way to know what's the right thing to do. So what you want to see happening scale-wise in your reverse diet is ideally two different options. You either want to see that the scale is trending down overall. If this is happening, it's definitely the green light for you to be increasing your food, because as you're bringing food up, you are actually losing weight, which means you definitely are safe to be increasing your food. Now, the other option, and this is the one that is probably the most likely to happen, is that your weight is more or less maintaining even though you are bringing your food up. Even this is a good outcome, because if you're able to eat more food but you're not actually gaining weight, that still means your metabolism is speeding up. And usually a lot of the time, because you're training properly, because you're also doing your macros properly, even though you are eating more and even though the scale is maintaining, you're usually going to start to look better in your photos. You're going to start to be leaner and you're going to start to be more toned because you're having body recomposition. So fat is coming off at the same time that muscle's coming on. Now, if you start to see that the scale is really moving upwards in your reverse, that is kind of where you would want to stop it. Again, assuming that you're somebody who has body fat to lose. If you're somebody who has room to gain weight, then this is a bit different because you can actually be gaining that muscle. But if you're somebody who needs to take weight off and you see the scales going up, that is when you would be stopping it and you would be moving into your cut. Now, hopefully that would be around 2,000 calories a day. It's okay to see the scale go up a little bit in a reverse, maybe a couple pounds, like 2-3 pounds, but you wouldn't want to be seeing it going much higher than that, because if you have somebody who's weight to lose, you just need to be taking that weight off. So around this point is when you would start your calorie deficit, aka going into your cut. Now, when you're in your cut, obviously the main thing to be looking for is you want to be seeing that scale trend moving downwards. It doesn't mean that it's always going to be perfectly moving down. You are going to be having fluctuations day to day, but you want to be seeing an overall trend happening. Now, if it's been several weeks of perfect adherence and you haven't been seeing any downward movement in the scale, that's when you know you need to change something with your protocols. You need to either adjust your food, decrease it a little bit, or you need to increase the deficit by increasing your activity. So higher steps, more steady state cardio, and potentially also just pushing harder in your training to try to get the scale to move a little bit more. Now, the other option is you are in your build. And again, just because we are trying to gain weight, we don't want to be gaining so much weight so quickly, because then you will just end up gaining too much body fat. So when you're in the build, you want to be seeing the scale trending up about 1 to 2 pounds more or less for the entire month. That is how you gain weight slowly so that you don't end up gaining too much body fat, but you are getting fuller in all the right places, getting more snatch and hourglassy because you're building that muscle. All right, Fit Fam, so those are the 3 things you need to do to for sure see results in your fitness journey. And again, it does not need to be that difficult. The only reason that people struggle so much is because they are not doing these things. They are not tracking their data and they are not making decisions based on that data. They're just hoping and guessing for results instead of for sure knowing how to get them. So again, this is what we do inside our one-to-one coaching program, giving you the exact steps to follow, exactly what to eat, how much, what workouts to do, giving you feedback on how you do the exercises so you can make sure you're maximizing your results in the gym so that you're going to ultimately build that beautiful, fit, toned hourglass body and be able to maintain it year-round for life. So if you don't want to have to figure it out on your own, if you would like to just be given the step-by-step plan with all the accountability and support to see it through, we would love to speak with you and see if you'd be a good fit for the program, so you can click on the link in the description to apply. All right, Fit Fam, thanks so much for checking out this video. Now next, I want you to go watch this one here, where I'm going to go into more detail about those 3 phases, reversing, cutting, and building, so you can understand more about why you need to do each one and how to navigate through them. So I will see you in that video.